Welcome back to Tasteland. I am Francis Zira.
And I'm Daisy Alioto.
And who are we speaking to today, Daisy?
Today we're speaking with Adam Voith. He's a novelist and the editor and publisher of Little Engines, which is a literary publication and also community. And he's a retired music agent. So very knowledgeable about books and music, which are two things that we love to discuss on this podcast about topics. Technology and marketing.
One ostensibly, the ostensibly is a really, I don't know how much longer ostensibly can bear that load. Something I was thinking about as I was preparing for this episode today. It is election day as we record, and I think a year ago, like a year and a week ago, was when we did our live show. And we had a few indie media titans, I would say there. But I remember because it was just a couple of weeks after Zohran had launched his campaign and we were talking about it. And I remember Max Rivlin-Nadler from Hellgate saying like, oh yeah, like, he's going to run. He's not going to win that much, but he's going to pull whoever is running a little bit to the left and then, he'll endorse them. And I was just thinking about that this morning as he seems to be surging to victory. I can't believe that was a year ago.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely what I thought as well. I thought, oh, he'll shift the Overton window. And I paid attention to him as an assemblyman because like I knew him from college. So I was telling Ben, it feels like, I mean, not to make this about me, but it feels like a movie where you're like, if it was a movie in my life, I would just be like sitting in Arabic class across the like seminar table from Zohran. And then we would jump cut to now where like I get in my car and before like Spotify kicks in, I get like the staticky radio channel that like whatever it is. And it's like mayoral candidate Zohran Mamdani. And I'm like, what? It's still so surreal, but he has the skills. He is such a talented politician.
The juice.
And he really is the same person that he was in college, as far as I can tell. And like, he deserves it. And I'm just happy to have something to get excited about, to be honest. I'm scared for him sometimes, but yeah, I think it's really been incredible to watch. And it's meaningful to me to see somebody that I feel like I kind of like came of age with doing something so impactful.
It is beautiful. But listener, you are listening to this from the future, 24 hours or so after we record, likely. So you tell us who won the mayoral election.
Francis and I actually saw each other recently. Francis came to the Dirt Halloween party. And we will certainly all be over Halloween by the time you listen to this, but it was really good to see you. And it was a really fun night. We had
it was a real friend of the pod summit.
It was a friend of the pod summit, a good cast of characters, sort of Dirt inner circle. Danny Loftus was there and we chatted about Creative Complaint, which is the Ick podcast that she's kicking off. We finally announced The Desire Question, which is the other podcast that Dirt's doing. And I'm really excited about that. We'll have to have Laura on at some point.
Yes, absolutely.
For those of you that don't know, The Desire Question is an extension of our viral Dirt prompt where we asked people whether it's better to desire or be desired. But for the first season of the podcast, we're sort of narrowing it to asking authors this question and then having them talk about the way desire shows up in their books. And Laura Federico, the host, is a couples therapist and sex therapist. So I feel like she's going to be such a compelling interviewer on this topic. And I have said with no false humility, I hope that these podcasts blow our podcast out of the water because we are so, I think Tasteland sort of sets the tone for what people are thinking about in the Dirtyverse, but we don't have a narrow gimmick. And we've talked about that off and on. Yeah. So, I mean, Taste Heads, we love that you listen, but we know the podcast can be random. And so I'm interested to see whether a gimmick is the thing that will set these podcasts apart, and then maybe Frances and I can come up with a gimmick.
The gimmick of
but probably not. Probably not. We're probably just going to keep riffing.
We'll probably keep doing what we're doing. I'm excited to listen to that. I love Laura, wife of friend of the pod and my former boss, Ariel Rubin.
Yeah. Okay. Well, now we're going to reveal the nepotism at the heart of this project.
Daisy, you just talked about how Zohran Mamdani. You're trying to, draw this nepotism string. This is just the way the world works.
I actually think this is a really good example of like people making connections.
It's just community is really what it is.
Yeah, and when I've heard the first episode of the podcast already.
When you hear it,
mm-hmm. Oh yeah, and second podcast today is being recorded with Stefan Bugu. So when you hear it, you're going to know nobody else could have done this podcast. I actually had the concept in mind for a while because our WME agent texted me out of the blue, like maybe 6 months ago, and was like, I have an idea, I need to talk to you. And I was like, well, can't wait to hear what this is. And then it called me while the dryer repairman was at the apartment, was like, Dirt needs a sex podcast. And I'm like walking to the other room muttering, I'm like, okay, this guy's like pulling a sock out of my dryer. And I'm like, why do we need a sex podcast? But as we all know, sex is really about desire, and desire touches so many other parts of our life. So I'm kind of like saying it's like if Esther Perel had a book club. And for those people who decide to quote tweet the announcement and say there's no such thing as a literary podcast, shut the fuck up. Nobody cares. It's not for you. Well, I don't know what to tell you.
They should thank you. They should thank you. People on Twitter need things to be mad about, and this is how. I haven't checked
the tweet in a while, but I think I'm also was at one point getting soft canceled for saying books are consumer products. But
yeah, I kind of saw that.
So
you buy them. I saw that dimly, or like I didn't like dig too deep, but I saw some of that going on last week, and that was kind of my impression, is that people were getting mad at you for saying that physical books are a product people buy, and they seem to be getting precious about like the writing itself, which isn't really what you were talking about.
No,
there was an inability to separate.
It's about like policing the behavior of people that buy books because they're photographing them, or they're doing it. They treat them like accessories because they want to be seen as bookish, and it's like, yeah, that's what people do with products.
Speaking of bookish people,
let Adam in. I'm sure he has strong opinions on this.
He'll have things to say about this.
Adam, before you came in, I was talking to Frances about a controversial tweet I did. Somebody wrote a Substack about like bookishness and the rise of kind of people who like to engage in the dark academia aesthetic and to buy kind of the accessories of reading and to be thought of as a reader, but maybe are not necessarily like the deepest, most curious readers. And I was saying like, the publishing industry and the humanities are not the same thing. The publishing industry sells a consumer product, which is the book. And so to police the way that people buy and use that product when they've already paid for it really just doesn't make any sense from a financial perspective, especially if you're an author. And I said, like, the day you take that Big Five advance, you enter an alliance with people that are going to buy your book just to take a photo of it. And like, that's a kind of a great outcome for you. But people didn't like that because I think people like to conflate the humanities with the publishing industry. And I don't know if I care enough to like die on the hill that it's like not the same, but apparently I am dying on that hill.
Because people are fighting with you. Are you still using Twitter? Is this what you're saying?
Yeah, I don't know. I guess I'm addicted to it, Adam.
Yeah, I got mine. Don't worry. Other ones.
You're on Blue Sky. I know that about you.
Am I? I don't use it.
Are you? I thought you were.
I dabbled I dabbled for a minute. I don't know.
How many Blue Sky accounts lay fallow now?
Yeah.
So what social media platform do you use the most then? Instagram?
I guess Instagram, even though I feel like I'm like a year behind how dead it is. Like it feels like real kind of ghost towny to me, but which is good. Let's hope they all die and we don't have to do that anymore, right? I mean, that would be amazing.
Well, I think not to throw you into our meatiest question, but there's definitely a parallel conversation that could happen around are people buying music right? Like, obviously there's a spectrum. Taylor Swift milking her fans by releasing like different covers
Variants.
is extremely cynical. But for people underneath Taylor Swift and Charlie XCX, like, there's a world in which, I would argue, like our world, where like most musicians are making significant amounts of money, not from streaming, but for people who buy the accessories of being a fan of that musician, merch. But I would include in that like special edition vinyls and things that like you could listen to, but you don't need to listen to because you can listen to it essentially for free. And when I was describing to Francis like what Little Engines is, I was like, it's a literary project that kind of operates like a record label by somebody who knows the in and outs of that industry as well. But I'm curious whether you think there's a sort of similar like track of like trying to disentangle the snobbery of like, this is art from actually this is like the commerce part is kind of the only part working, and we have to let people engage the way they want to engage.
God, I don't know. I mean, the record label thing is like, I love that because that's just sort of the kind of business model I first ever saw and was like, ooh, what's that doing? And then I kind of stopped learning about business. After then I was just like, I'm going to apply that to how I do everything. And so that's intentional, you know, more so the business side than the business side for me. Cause there's like, when I was doing music, there was money to be made. Doing this, it does not seem to me that there's money to be made publishing a literary journal. But like the roster building part of it is what I'm most interested in. The sort of like a label that builds a roster of artists that they get behind and really kind of repeatedly represent. Ideally, like an ideal relationship is an artist and a label do several records, you know, and maybe their bands tour together more commonly because there's a common thread aesthetically that way or whatever. So roster building at a magazine is like something I think of as a record label concept that I learned. And then I went on to do it in my job. I was booking bands and I had a small roster of these artists that we did many, many tours, you know, so you like develop like a lingo together over like lots of different things instead of just I'm publishing your short story and I'm not going to talk to you again, you know, or whatever, like submitting it something, which is I will do that as well. But the most exciting thing to me is like this year we've done a bunch of readings for the first time, and people so we'll have a couple local people read with what has mostly been me and Kyle Seibel and Mike Nagel touring. And we'll bring on a few local people. And now some of those people are submitting stuff. And they didn't really maybe even know the magazine before we came there and did our reading or whatever. That's super cool to me because it feels, again, like it's a continuation of something that hopefully is not just one time submit, accept transaction, which is the thing I like the least about aside from maybe that you don't, that there's not seemingly money to be made, the submission culture. I really don't, it's like, feels like the least cool thing in the world to me. And like,
we say more about that. Like, what is submission culture is, I've never heard that exact phrase, but I feel like I know exactly what you mean. But can you kind of describe like, what are the attributes of people who go too hard into this culture?
It is the way you get published. You submit your writing places. And so like, it totally
just like
makes
spray
sense.
And pray on submittable without really knowing.
Maybe there, or maybe you're even more direct and like intentional. But like I'll just say I haven't submitted a lot of writing, so I'm not going to say like as a writer, I get it. Because I just haven't published that much stuff of my own, especially lately. Like when I was younger, I did. But as an editor, like watching what happens to the magazine when I have an open call for submissions, that's where everyone is paying attention to the magazine. So these are not readers, they're writers and they're submitters, you know, and like, which is fine because I you need it all. But I feel like it's been a depressing thing to learn for me that like the most action you get is asking people to submit work, not reading the work. which seems to me a real problem. And I don't know what the actual problem is. Like, why are short stories, poems, and essays not attracting readers, and instead they're attracting submitters? I don't know the answer.
Well, I think the answer is just that there's like everybody wants to be making things, and the value of the made thing is so low. So you need to produce so many to, you need to sell a lot of them to like justify doing it or make a living doing it. And there's so many places to read things or just to consume things generally, right? So it's like, it's kind of like the problem of the creator economy, not necessarily just on like social media platforms, but just
sure.
like the democratization of like everybody making things, attention.
But there's still prestige in getting published. I think there's a lot of people who have seen like the value in being a published writer, just with no qualifications. Like, was what you published good? Did people read it? Was it an enjoyable experience for you? And they're like, no, this is a box that I need to check. Like, I have idolized these people that are published writers, and that for me, this is something I need to be able to say about myself without really considering like the quality of the process.
What I think though is this is a hypothesis.
We love a hypothesis on this podcast, Adam.
I'm talking about underground literary magazines, small ass magazines, like Little Engines.
Somebody should start a magazine called Small Ass Magazine.
There's so many of these. There are so many of these. And like, my hypothesis is the magazines are, with few exceptions, not the draw, and that it's these cool authors with very tiny audiences are bringing their readers to it. And I don't think anyone's talking about that really. They're understanding it on like a social media level of like, well, they'll repost this, but like actual people that are reading this person's short story or are going to come to your magazine. And I don't know how to like focus more on that, but that's what I want to do, is like the readers. Like a couple people have said these like jarring things to me this year where I'm like, Jesus, that's so smart. But like a guy that runs a publishing company was just like, the reader is the least taken care of person in the equation currently in what we're all doing. And I was like, oh damn, that's really legit. The reader is one of the last things we're talking about or dealing with so often. And then there's this publisher, Relegation Books, who just have this thing coming out very soon called The Relegation Reader. Maybe it's out this week, but it's like an anthology that this guy, Will Mountain Cox, edited. And he's a cool writer. He's an American living in Paris. And he wrote a cool book about Paris that I love called Roundabout. So it's kind of how I found his world. And he's got dope writers in this thing, but he himself, as the editor who compiled it, speaks at the end of each piece in this like really amazing way. But what he's always talking about is readers and reading. It's like novel. I'm just like, this is so weird that like to talk about this. It seems so novel, but it is what to me is the path forward. And it is not, I don't think it leads to any better results in terms of audience size, maybe, or money, or any of that shit. But I do think it leads to a much cooler experience of a scene and a culture,
Well, wait, like the thing I was trying to get on a few minutes ago, what I was responding to is like, my impression was you were saying that there are like all these people will come and give attention when submissions are open, and there's all these submitters, but these submitters aren't necessarily reading Little Engines or any other underground magazine, right? They're just like they're just submitters. They're not readers across the ecosystem. They're just roving bands of submitters who aren't engaging as not even as consumers, but as like audience members.
I would say that's not. I don't want to sound that harsh at all. Definitely, many of those people are reading, but I don't think as many as you would want, or reading deeply and more. I'm a fucking new reader. It's like I don't have the answers or like feel like I have some. I'm just trying to like step out of the things that look and feel bad and that everyone is kind of annoyed with, and just be like, all right, well, what's left? And like, I just keep thinking about, like, as I become a more intense reader and try to become a better reader and stuff, like, how do we just talk more about the reading than the publishing?
If you look at like what's going on with the art market, Fran Lebowitz, I saw her make a really good point one time, rare, where she was like, we stopped calling it the art world and started calling it the art market. And it's like, well, yeah, but you don't see painters like mad that like people buy their paintings, or if they are,
I don't know that world that well, but I always look at it and I'm like, they're all so cool with this arrangement. Like, It doesn't seem like there's this like friction, but who are these authors you're speaking of who don't like self-promotion? Like, I feel like that is all I see authors doing. I know you have to just keep doing that. But like, do you mean like successful people that don't need that to actually sell something are like less interested now in accepting that they're a part of a market because they've already kind of conquered that market? Or do you mean like up and coming writers? Who you mean?
I think more up and coming. I think there's people who just have a lot of resentment and never get that much success and they feel it's because they weren't willing to sell out and market themselves. I also think like you see people doing it, but unless you're like friends with them, you don't really know how they feel about having to do it.
For sure.
But if you talk to them privately, there's a lot of doubt. And I also agree with your friend that said the readers are really underserved right now. But I think like more publishing companies should treat it like a record label and like they're nurturing talent. Like, we really lost that. And I have to interact with publishing houses on a limited basis when I coordinate getting books or getting excerpts of books. And like literally this morning, I was in a back and forth because like trying to get an excerpt of a book that I'm paying for and ask them like, can you send it to me in a Word doc and not a PDF? Like, I can't take the text out of this PDF and drop it in my site. And typically, like, if they're used to doing this, they will package it for you. And it was like pulling teeth. I actually texted my friend that works at the same publishing house and I was like, can I call you? And I was like, are you guys good? Like, are you guys okay? Because I'm like trying to run a company and there's a mid-level employee at your company that doesn't want to convert a PDF for me.
They can't send me a Word document.
I'm just trying to figure out, like, do you guys have lead in your water? Like, what's going on? And I feel bad, but it's also like, if I didn't have the experience of running a business, I would chalk it up to maybe there's something that I don't understand. But it's like really quite simple. And the publishing industry is an incredibly conservative industry in the way that it functions. But because it's like a politically liberal and artistic industry, that conservatism gets overlooked. But being like, conservatism is more than just like a political ideology. It's like an unwillingness to do things differently. And I think that's why like you and I have connected, Adam, because you also have that knowledge of business. Like, I know you were joking, like you got this education in a specific period of time in the music industry and then it kind of stopped. But I think that gives you a huge leg up over people who never had that education.
For sure.
And we had Andy Hunter on the podcast, who's the CEO of Bookshop. And
I listened to it actually.
Oh yeah. And he was like reading Barbarians at the Gate. And I'm like, yeah, you could probably learn more about a long ass book about a hostile takeover in the 80s right now. Take something from that and how to like run something, than trying to look around at like the dysfunction right now.
I don't know. I think you know the world way more. I mean, I'm not in New York and I don't really know publishing or people in publishing, especially at the big places. I knew a couple agents when I worked at agencies, and I've poked around a little bit, but like, it does seem like the most consistent of any like world of art making that is a market where there's the dissatisfaction and the sort of complaining about how it doesn't work seems like universal from all angles. And it's just like, damn, what a bummer. Like my reaction, having like spent the past few years trying to figure out like, okay, what do I want to do with this magazine? And I'm a writer myself. What do I want to do with my own writing? Is like, while I might know business and have like done business with artists before and like could do it, I am like really like I'm resistant to doing it because it just it's like everyone seems so bummed out, you know, and like I myself have become bummed out at certain paths that are like, do I like what is this for? But what you're doing, I think, is when I first met you, I was like, I love how often you just talk about your business and like you're very much like, this is a goddamn business. Like I'm trying to succeed in business, which I totally admire. And I don't have that currently with this stuff. Like I don't have that drive to like conquer it. I do, however, see the dissatisfaction and like brain starts going like, oh, well, what could we do? You know, like how can we get, so I'm like, it's sucking me in to be like, well, why don't you try to do some shit, you know? And like,
you
see
have
if you could
taste. Yeah.
We're on Tasteland. I was like, oh, I'm going to be on Tasteland. Have I developed
How
taste?
long will it take somebody to say the word taste? This might be a record for us.
Put that on Polymarket.
Well, Francis has some questions about what you're reading right now. Speaking of taste.
I did have one question about what are you reading right now?
Is that the question?
That's the question. I did write that in the notes. I want to know what you're reading right now.
Or what you have read recently that resonated with you.
Yes. Yeah. Anything this year?
This morning I was reading Ed Park's book, this book. Do you guys know this?
No.
News to me.
It's an office book. What year is this? I think it's 2003 maybe.
An office book?
Yeah. 2008, sorry. It's about offices and like it's basically like Severance but funny and not like psychotic. You know, it's like it's this weird office book. It's really cool. I don't know him, but this book I love the artwork, and I like he said something smart on Substack the other day, and I was like, I'm going to buy that book. So I've been reading that. That's cool.
Does it feel really pre-COVID?
It does. So a couple current things I read, like contemporary novels that were like in the early part of the century, feel so weirdly dated, and like an office book seems really weirdly dated, you know, and like I don't know if those kind of things like later get a swing up when it's like you've passed that point of exhaustion about hearing about office culture and how fucked up and funny it is in our current state or whatever. But his writing's super good. The form of it is really kind of unique and interesting. So it's like I'm ripping through it.
I've been, as a corollary to that, I've been reading, and I guess you could call it an anti-office book, in Generation X by Douglas Coupland.
Yeah.
I'd never read it before, but I was reading something else and a friend recommended it to me.
I just rebought it.
You just rebought it?
Yeah, I saw it. I think it's sitting here.
I
had it when I was younger, and I saw it in a used bookstore. I was like, I'm going to read that again, so I bought it, but I haven't hit it again.
It's an easy read. It's like it's like 180 pages, and like it's like a big square book. But
square books.
But like the actual like writing is only on like a third of the page. But anyways, it's interesting for like, you know, the Gen X like anti-capitalist kind of sentiment in there. Like there's some bits that feel so. This is relatable. This is now. I saw some tweet that was like, you know, expressing this exact sentiment the other day or something like that. But there's other bits too that do feel I guess, I don't know if quaint in this way, in what we're talking about like, oh, like writing is a business, this kind of thing. Like there's this like, you know, checking out of all that of society, of commerce sentiment that feels like more dated, where it's like, well, that's less of an option right now.
Interesting. Yeah, I don't know what period we're in right now. You know, there's that thing where like it takes 25 years before the century knows what it's about or whatever. Mm-hmm. And I actually, aside from like this Ed Park thing, I've been reading like a bunch of modernist stuff I didn't read when I was young and I should have. So like I read Mrs. Dalloway, Ulysses. I just finished Light in August, which was sick. bunch of Hemingway stuff I never read, like 4 or 5 Hemingway books. And I'm reading like all this like interwar stuff, and like they're trying to figure out what the fuck is going on now. Like what's going to happen? What are we about now or whatever? And I'm like, I don't know if our books currently know what's happening, you know? But I do think stuff that's like pre-COVID, pre-Trump, early 2000s is like in a weird period where it's like kind of hard to like not feel like, oh God, I know this too well or something, you know?
Yeah.
I also think like a lot of authors are too insulated to be keen observers of the world, because they surround themselves with other writers. And that makes it, I think it gives you a very limited viewpoint of the zeitgeist. And I feel the same way about like technologists who never leave their bubble in San Francisco, have no idea how normal people use technology or their internet or what they're looking for from it. But that's why I like Kyle's writing so much. Because Kyle Seibel, yeah, because he's a writer, but he has not always lived surrounded by writers. And he's able to capture something really interesting about America because of that.
He's also never written a character that is a writer. And I think it's super intentional. He's just like, I'm not writing about writers, which I love. He seems outside of the current cultural moment to me in a way that I love. I don't feel like you can align Kyle in his writing with stuff, which I think is super cool. He just is. His stories just are. And I like that. He's
for the audience,
own universe.
Yeah, his most recent collection is called Hey You Assholes from Clash Books. And I mean, if a big bright cover that says "Hey You Assholes" doesn't get your attention, I don't know.
Purple ass cover. Yeah, those are very good stories.
They are great stories, and they really stay with you. Sometimes I'll finish a short story collection, even by somebody I love, by like Lori Moore, and I'm like, wow, I couldn't tell you a single thing that happened in this. I don't know. I couldn't tell you a single person's name. And I really didn't feel that way. That's me with
tons of books. I don't have good recall, and it's like a combination of reasons. Some of them really obvious, like if you're like a super stoner, you're not going to recall stuff. You know what I mean? It's like I haven't been the best steward of my memory. But Kyle's book, and this is a lot of books, like as I'm trying again to like figure out how to read books better or whatever. I was like, I want to remember those stories. So I read them once. Then I saw him do a bunch of them when we were touring. And I was like, man, I really want to remember these. So I read it again, and now I remember them. It's like, so like the reread in order to remember feels to me like a highest compliment of a book. It's like, if you're an idiot like me that doesn't remember a book as soon as you finish it, and it's so, but whatever does stick with you, whatever the fucking residue is that makes you then read it again, like that has to be the signal of a good book, to like want to remember it, even though you're incapable of remembering books.
I love that word residue, because like, residue actually came up in our last podcast with Nick Susie, where he was talking about Cheeto dust on the internet.
Yeah. Posts are the Cheeto dust of your identity.
Nice. That's a real high-low there.
So obviously we also have to ask you about the best shows that you saw this year. And you saw Geese open for Vampire Weekend this summer.
That was a great show. Yeah.
Yeah. What do you think about Geese blowing up?
Your Voith memo about it.
Oh yeah.
Voith memo.
I'm fucking so really psyched funny. about that band blowing up. Like, I don't like it is like, if when it started happening, I was like, is this actually going to be like universally loved now? Which is like, I'm always looking for that moment when you're just like, holy shit, everybody's in, like, and it's really good stuff. It's like, it's left field stuff. It's the most unlikely, like a weird New York rock and roll band that like in their music references some of the most uncool music and genres
in 2025
all the time. Yeah. The least likely thing, which is, apparently what we were all actually looking for, but I fucking love them. The show I saw that was pouring down rain the whole time, and I was like, I'm just going to stand here and get wet. This is so great. And I'm actually going to go see them next week. They're not playing Nashville, which I don't know why they're not playing here, but I'm going to go see them in Atlanta next week.
Nice.
Because I'm obsessed. But
somebody should write a piece about all the old YouTube clips of bands performing in the rain and why they're so much more popular than
Are you thinking
regular
of that
clips.
one Goo Goo Dolls clip?
Goo Goo.
Oh, yeah.
And then there's another big one, Bush performing Glycerin in the Rain.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think that's the same year.
The Green Day at one Woodstock in the rain and with the mud and shit.
Yeah, I mean that year at Woodstock, there's a lot of clips from that was right.
Yeah, a lot of rain.
Were you able to get those tickets at face value, or did you have to get them resale? Because I didn't have the thought to try to get tickets to see them in Brooklyn until after they had already been sold, and now they're like $270 cheapest.
Yeah, there were tickets in Minneapolis for the show. I was maybe going to drive up to Minneapolis to go with a friend, and he was like looking on the second row. There was a ticket. They played a very small room. I think there was a ticket for $4,000 to go to this like 300 cap club, but I did not pay for my ticket. I am still somehow
Mazel.
Coasting on, can I be on the guest list? And the
Let's
answer is yes. So, so I'm going to ride it as long as I can.
Uh-huh.
Well, Adam, like from like you talking about the geese, like is this going to be? Are they going to become universally beloved? Like, is this storyline actually happening for this band? Like, what bands and musicians that you worked with did you see kind of like unexpectedly rise that way? And like, what did you learn from kind of having a front row seat to that?
Yeah, there was like a period where like a couple happened in a row for me, like on the booking side. Like the same year, I think Bon Iver and Vampire Weekend started working them before the records came out, and so felt something coming. But then when the record came out and the tours were happening, it was just like, oh, something's really happening. So those two for sure. This artist, The Tallest Man on Earth from Sweden, was just like he had just done nothing here. He was sort of unknown in Sweden and America. But he started having this moment that was, it didn't go to that same level as those other two, but it was just the room inside the rooms was fucking crazy. Like it was like electric. And he was this, tiny Swedish dude with an acoustic guitar playing these folk songs. But it was like, it felt like rabid in the rooms on that first record. That was a really good one. Mumford & Sons was a total stunning shocker. Had no idea what was going on because they had never resonated over here. And we booked a tour before the radio thing kicked in for them. They were the first band I worked with that got on the radio properly. Like they were on every fucking radio station, not just the, indie stations and the college stations, whatever. They were on all the radio stations all of a sudden. So that was one where, no one could get to the show. You could not get a ticket to the shows on their early tours. That really stayed with them for a long time and just kept going. But that was like a not super far apart period. So I felt like I was like holding on to these comet tails and kind of learning. And I think what I learned is that like the fan, this is going to go back to the reader thing, but like the fan is the fucking thing. So like when you start having an audience and you begin to like develop, especially for bands who are like, you're looking for like not one record cycle, but a decade, decades of records. How do you foster that fan base so they are not fickle and that they're going to keep coming and building with you? And those are some bands that I think have done really well with that. Just like taking care of the fan and like playing the right place and doing the right show itself and putting out the right records, even when it sometimes would feel like a total like wrong turn, but like following the same drive that got you the fans in the first place, instead of trying to keep them around by spoon feeding them whatever. Like these were like things that I would watch artists doing and fans responding to, and then having to try to like synthesize that into the live thing was, even now, like if I do go to a show, like I'm watching like the show and the band and then the show. And like part of it is the audience and like, just what are the fans doing? What are they thinking? What are they like that part of it was, what I got obsessed with, I guess.
I need to say something very crass, which is, do you think there's enough ways to monetize being early to a band like that or an author? Because like to go back to the art industry, like if you were early, like if you were in on somebody early enough to buy their work because of the like non-fungibility of a painting. Like if they blow up, like your painting will increase in value. And it's interesting, the asymmetry between different creative industries. Like I feel like technologists have come up with a bunch of really dumb ways to try to like fix this, but it does seem like a real problem for the fan and for somebody who's like a booker or publishes authors, that like there's not really a reward for being early. You know, if Kyle goes on, like if his next book's a bestseller, obviously it reflects well on your taste from a qualitative perspective. But it's not like there's then going to be like an increased market for the short stories he published with you.
For sure.
Like, did you benefit from being early to Mumford and Sons or Vampire Weekend, or did you just get the fee that you got at the time and then you kind of learned from it?
Booking is weird because there's no equity in anything. Like you don't get, like record labels will at least have a lease on your record, you know, if not own it. There's no equity. You don't own anything. The show's over. You're paid a percentage and it's over. There's no more money to be made ever from that concert. Whereas like a song just is generative a million ways all the time, constantly kicking off money in different places. The show is like one time, one fee, and it's over. So the whole thing you're talking about doesn't exist for agents. It's just about like building a long-term relationship with them and not getting fired. I mean, agents are fucking crazy. You don't have a contract with these artists. Like they can leave you any second. So like you are completely unprotected in that way, and vice versa. You can leave. So like, it's just a very weird relationship that like you give it so much and there's so much fucking money involved in concerts. Like if you start selling tickets, like money is crazy. So like, and there's just this handshake agreement with agents and artists. Then it's always been that way. It's very weird. So it's just about maintaining. If you're early, you hope that the artist remembers that and like wants to stay with you because you were there forever. But like that shit only goes so far. And like loyalty in the music business is it's not having a good season. Like it's just, people are less loyal than they used to be in that world. There used to be a little more of a code of honor with stuff that's like kind of gone. So
people are
really
less loyal and honorable in everything.
That's true.
Is that because of like fighting over less money, and so there's like less incentive to be loyal, more incentive to be greedy?
There is a million answers to that. It's all the bad ones, you know. But yeah, definitely greed and I don't know, when you said there's less to go around, like the thing in music, live music, and who knows when this will stop, but it is ballooned. Like it's had like this crazy expansion, and then after COVID it went even harder, big expansion. So there's only more money around, which is to me probably part of the, what makes it so complicated. But yeah, you don't get a painting that you can then flip for $2 million 20 years later or whatever. It just is not, it's not like that.
Well, this concept of equity, like I've been percolating on an essay, tying together a few different threads that I've seen out there about like how we're all founders now. Maybe Francis and I can collab on this, because this is a thread that runs through a lot of the people he interviews for his newsletter and his other podcast, Creator Spotlight. Like this idea, like, to me, it's like directly tied to inflation, because like I will have frustration with somebody who I interact with who's in a salaried job, and I just know like they don't feel like they're being paid enough to do their job, but that they are being paid. It's just that like their salary doesn't feel like enough because everything else is so expensive. And so a lot of people will stay in that position and just not do their job as well. But then the people who are most ambitious just leave and try to start their own thing. And it creates like this surplus of like freelancing, contracting, consulting, founderhood, which is like a huge part.
It's got to be at a saturation point, right? Like there's just too many founders now.
You would think, but AI is going to do more of it. And I think if we actually had any sort of form of like UBI, like Ireland actually just made permanent this UBI for artists, which I think is like incredible. A month, right? Yeah, which is like, obviously, like, I mean, I've I could have lived on, and have lived on maybe like $2,000 to $3,000 a month. I would say, like when I was freelancing, like that's enough to cover rent for sure, which for most artists is going to be their biggest expense. I mean, I think that's incredible. But it's not just like even artists now, like it's going to have to be everyone. But we're in this weird period, like speaking of like trying to metabolize this over the next 25 years, where it's like, it's going to seem crazy that so many people are going out on their own and trying to do things with no safety net.
Well, if you'll forgive me an indulgence of reading 2 paragraphs of something. This is Daisy's least favorite thing that I do, but this came out about a year ago. Max Read, Read Max newsletter. This issue is called The TikTok Electorate, and I think about it very often. So this is 2 paragraphs from later on in it.
Let's hear it.
Americans tend to love small business owners as a concept, but as a class, they're among the traditional strongholds for fascist and reactionary politics. Fearful of change from below, getting canceled by your followers, jealous of their relative social position, follower count, resentful of the larger and wealthier companies and people they see as threatening their livelihoods, real celebrities, eager to vote for a strong leader whose dictatorial authority they can identify with, fellow influencer Donald J. Trump. The petite bourgeois are uniquely exposed to market forces in a way that is not crazy to analogize to an influencer's exposure to a given platform. It seems worth noting, too, in the age of trad influencer mania, that Wilhelm Reich famously located the core of petite bourgeois reaction in the structure of the patriarchal family, which both mirrors and is coterminous with the small business itself. Obviously, not everyone who uses TikTok is making money from it or is exploiting the labor of their family, and not every influencer is thinking about their interests quite so nakedly. But social media overall tends to encourage users to understand themselves as small business owners, where the business is you or your brand navigating the market of a platform. This has always been the case implicitly, but the rise of TikTok and YouTube, which disconnect users from the limiting social graph of IRL friends and families, and which pay users directly for developing a successful small business, has made the connection much more explicit. I wonder how much using and mediating the world with a set of platforms that inculcate you as a member of the petite bourgeois affects how you conceive of your political and material interests.
That was not 2 paragraphs, dog. That was like 5.
It's 2 paragraphs. They're just really long.
But
really,
I
could have just read the second one. But I do think that the thesis here of like like social media turning people into small business owners, and then like that's more making people more self-interested is really strong.
Well, I feel like I'm arguing the opposite, which is that like more writers should think of themselves as small business owners. But I actually think if that happened, they would become more self-interested as organizers towards better forms of social democracy that actually take like some level of capitalism in the market like into account, rather than just like throwing away so much social capital on like pretending to be a communist or an anarchist online and then like turning on subscriptions on your Substack and being like, why does nobody pay for this? I don't know. Like, sorry, Adam, we do this a lot.
I love it. I mean, the premise that social media has done something dramatic is unquestionable, right?
Yeah.
Like something bad has gone on here, it's like, but Daisy, to your point, like, I am so curious when you're talking about writers trying to be small businesses, you're not talking about self-publishing necessarily, right? You're more talking about marketing yourself in a way that is maybe trying to find ways to. Well, tell me what you mean more.
Well,
or maybe you do mean self-publishing.
I think you should think of yourself and approach it as if you're self-publishing, even if you're publishing with a big 5 publisher, because if you are not on their priority list for that season, but you are expecting them to take care of everything, like you're going to be screwed. I'm seeing it firsthand. Like I know these writers think that their publicist and the marketing team inside this publishing house is working on their behalf, but I am like trying to boost these writers and these work. And like the publisher is actively making it harder for me and working against me. And it's not because they have something against me or dirt. It's like, I think a lot of these writers, if they knew I was chasing their publicist for a galley, would be horrified. But inside these publishers, they do not have like a unified list of who should receive a galley and who should be marketed to. Like those lists are kept by individuals, or maybe they're shared across an imprint. So there's no unified like data inside Penguin or whatever that's like, here's a list of all the people that write about books, like tagged for like audience size, what they're interested in, what they've covered in the past. Like that's just basic business. And so if you're selling something and you're competing against people running $1 million businesses off of Shopify and actually investing in go-to-market data, like really in-depth data about their audience, and like you're flying blind because you're having turf wars between like two people that sit 3 desks apart, like that's crazy in my opinion, and really inefficient.
The comment, there's like these common things that I sort of feel like I've picked up and heard a lot when people are talking about their books experience and it's like one of the really obvious things that people say is like, oh yeah, your publisher's not going to do anything. Like they're not going to, they're not going to do your tour anymore. You have to find your own, and like, oh, so if you get a book deal, most people getting the book deal are still, having to do their own marketing and their own ideas for events and whatever. And that seems like, I'm just like so confused as to like, why are publishers not doing things? It's like, seems like
because they gave you a loan that you have to pay back no matter what.
Yeah, no, I get it.
Expecting you to pay it back. And so it's like calling it an advance. It's like, well, we gentrified the concept of a 0 interest loan, brother. Like,
but this is the same as music. Like music would give you get a big advance for the major label, but they would do things. They would do some things. Yeah. Like they would hire the publicist or whatever, like, I don't know. But, I was going to say this, like, there's a publicist on Substack who posted some fucking note that said, being a literary publicist means sending out hundreds of emails and then waiting for no one to get back to you. And I'm just like, if that's what you, a literary publicist, and this person is a real publicist, like, if that is what you think your job is, we are fucking screwed. Like, that is so dumb that you think your job is sending emails and that you are saying this out loud, like as though you're proud of the fact that you are getting no responses to the mass emails you're sending out. Like you're putting that on the internet as like what you understand your job to be. I'm like, oh, that sounds exactly like the inefficiencies in every other thing, where like the music had this similar thing where it's like, the publicity game, the things that are supposed to find the listeners or the readers, they're just not fucking working. And yet people are entrenched in that this is what their job is, Yeah. I mean, I would be so ashamed if I put that on the internet about my job. Like if I were a booking agent and I was like, well, it's time to submit 40 bands to Coachella and get no offers, I would be fired by all of my clients instantaneously, and I should be,
Yeah, that's a great parallel. Like, I feel like that's where some of these parallels are coming in between the two businesses. And like, I think everyone likes to believe there's a shark somewhere working on their behalf, but nobody wants to be a shark. And it's like, you need to be the shark. There is no shark inside this publishing house.
It's so unfair though, because like writers aren't supposed to be good at that shit necessarily, like, and it's not just writers, like musicians are not supposed to be good, like fucking social justice warriors. They're musicians. They're supposed to be good at music, or like they're not supposed to be good content makers of short video. Like they make short songs. That's what their fucking thing is. They make short songs. Don't make them do this other stuff. But so I think it's across everything. But what you're lobbying for and that you think people need to do, I agree with you, but it sucks for those people that do not have that skill set.
Well, I think why people are like mad when I say this stuff is they think that I'm arguing for it rather than observing. Like, totally. I'm not I get arguing that you should think about a book as a handbag.
You're saying we're in the ocean, learn to swim.
Exactly. And like, I understand that like from a certain perspective, that means I'm normalizing it. But like, I think this is where we are and we've been here for a while. And, yeah, like writers aren't supposed to be good at it, but like the writers you see succeeding now are the best at it, whether they're good writers or not. So if you're a good writer and you could get good at marketing yourself, you would actually be raising the caliber of what else is out there, because I cannot see another Clouded book get overhyped and get excited about it and then read it and feel like I wasted 2 hours of my precious life. And I don't even fault people for that. Like, you got me. Good job. You already have my money. But yeah, that's like, it's not sending an email for sure. That's like me being like, my job is sending my newsletter, and my job is so much more than sending the newsletter.
Right. I mean, you could argue that the least interesting thing about your job is hitting the send button. I mean, that's the end of it. That's like, okay, I've done all my work, you know?
Right. And to your earlier point, like I meant to say, like, people have asked me, like, would you run dirt as a solo operator? Like, if it just became too hard to have a company with all of these, you know, managing freelancers and contributors and all these different arms, like, you know, would it be cheaper and more lucrative if it was just like Daisy's newsletter? And there's people who do that like really well. And I'm not interested in that. It's not exciting to me because I'm like you. I like finding and cultivating talent. I like taking people up with me. I'm very loyal to them. If they're not loyal to me, none of my business. But like that to me is how great eras in creativity and artwork come about, not through a scene where people just want to check the box of being published, but through like the deeper connections of like engaging with people's work, cultivating their work, making it better, shaping it. And you can do that and like be a shark at the same time, because like if you've put in that work, then you are going to, like, my husband calls me an apex predator. Like when you've put in that work with that person to cultivate them, you have a stake in their success and you want them to succeed, and you're going to go out and be aggressive about it. That's how I feel about writers that I have nurtured, and have put their trust in me. So when I encounter people that just don't feel that way, and I know it's because they're underpaid or whatever, I'm kind of like, oh, well, too bad, you know?
Yeah. I mean, there is, I spent a lot of time at the end of my music career being mad about watching how the music business is, you know, and we'd be like, this sucks. This is going the wrong direction. And like, at some point you're like, well, these people, they have to do this because this is their job. And like, this is the industry they're in. So they have to behave in this industry the way the industry behaves, you know? And like, not everyone, can just quit and get out of it, you know, or whatever. But it sounds like what your frustration, like you're like, I cannot see another Clouded book. And it's like, that is going to happen. Like you are going to see, and as soon as we close this thing, you're going to open the internet and you're going to see another, you know, one of those or whatever. But yeah, I don't know what the point that what you said, the most interesting point to me where like my brain goes to is where you read the book and you're disappointed. And now what? What do you do with that? What do you, Daisy, do with that? What does a publisher do with that when they realize that the books fall flat 2 weeks after the campaign, you know? And like, what is going to make readers, you know, like get psyched about these things, like the actual content of the book instead of the promotion of the book, you know? I don't know. Do you guys know, like, I'll do one more music thing. So I worked with this guy, Dijon, who fucking rules. He's like one of my favorites. He put out a record this year and did not put a picture of himself on the internet, did not do anything. Like he did not do anything. Like he just put out the record, and like the kind of the exact opposite of what you're saying, Daisy, in some ways, of just like, not only is he not like hustling or like trying, he's just like actually doing nothing. And I don't think, maybe behind the scenes, the record label did some
He's
things.
Performing though, right?
Well, you know,
he's going on tour. Yes.
There's two reasons. There's two reasons I know about him. The first time I heard about him was when he was on Justin Bieber's album. And then the second time I heard about him was when he was in One Battle After Another.
Yeah, totally. Which I haven't seen, but I heard his line is really good.
I watched it a couple of times. It's great.
Yeah. So I don't know, like my impulse, Daisy, is different than yours, I think. And it's not like whatever. Like, I'm just like so fucking like, what is the path that sidesteps all of it.
Well, I don't know. Is Dijon kind of just taking the Charlie route though, which is like first she was known for being featured on songs with people that were bigger than her, and now people are known for being featured with her. Like, I think like coming up with
what
some
you're
degree
saying is networking.
Right. Well, coming up with some degree of anonymity actually is like a way to prevent like burning hard and fast. So maybe there's like a strategy to that. And I think maybe a strategy for writers as well. Like,
I don't know if it's a strategy. I don't know. Like I don't work for them anymore, so I don't know. But my guess is that Dijon's answer would be, I think this shit is so good that I'm not going to do anything but give you this shit and let it do its thing. And if it means I don't get as big as I could, fine. If it means whatever it means is fine. I think he has to be at peace with that or whatever as an artist, to just truly not play the game. Like, I don't know that he even posted on Instagram when the record, maybe he did, maybe there was a couple, but whatever. But it was just like the most undersold record. And yet it came out earlier this year quietly. It has these, like, people are still talking about it. The reviews are gone, now the tour is on the road. So you're getting that, whatever. But I'm just like, this guy still has not done the promotional thing. He has not done the I'm a business thing. He's just purely, this is my music. Now I'm going to get on stage and play it. You cannot see me, get to me, talk to me. I'm not telling you anything. He did like one big long kind of his definitive Zane Lowe interview, I think, maybe it's shrewdness, but I think for him, it might be more that he thinks he can stand on the art itself, which I find ballsy and incredible.
Well, if you have the type of fan that responds to that, like maybe the answer is like, you can get away with it if you have the type of fan that will respond to that, you can get away with not aggressively marketing yourself as an author if you have the readership.
I think those are the fans. Those are not the type of fans. I think we have moved away. Like that is what a fan is. Like a fan, I think is,
is somebody who listens to the music and buys the ticket and isn't a fan of the TikTok videos, right? Like that's not like
they're just moved by the correct thing. A fan is moved by in my mind, the correct thing, which is the work itself, not the thing around the work, whether it be the music industry or the festival or the agency or the fucking whatever, or their personal social media accounts, and those kind of promos. It's like the fan. I want the fan to be into the thing, the same way I want them to be into the book, and the actual what's inside the book. There's this other thing where I was talking about someone's books, this publisher's books that look really good. And he's like, yeah, sometimes they look good. Sometimes they look like shit. It's still a book. Like, it's just a book, and he's like not precious about it. And I was like, that's kind of interesting. Like this, like not being overly concerned with like the sort of aesthetic position of the book or whatever. It's just like, no, what it's actually the words inside there are the book, and so like, I don't know. I feel like I'm like trying to sidestep the stuff where I think you're trying to unlock the stuff, and I think you're trying to be a progressive mover in a really uncertain time, and I admire the fuck out of it. I'm just like, I don't know how to move further with the business part,
Well, it'll be interesting to see how our fans respond to our collaboration later this month.
I'm excited about that.
Thank you so much, Adam. I think we're at time, but
this
has been Tasteland. Covered a lot of ground, and we'll see you next week.
Thanks, guys.